great when you have to have these glasses. It's reminding of my age. So welcome, good morning, glad you all have made it out. As Tony mentioned, FMBO sponsors this executive speaker series, primarily because leadership is an essential component for really quality families, quality communities, quality organizations. Without good leadership, without good vision, without good execution, all the things that are needed to thrive do not exist. And, you know, there was a quote by Lyndon Baines Johnson that basically said that leadership is more than just doing what is right. First, you have to know what is right. So, with that, we've had great past guest speakers that have served in large organizations in leadership capacity, civic organizations, government, and academic institutions. We're going to get a little bit of a different twist today, which is helpful, from a leader who actually is an entrepreneur. So, went without a large infrastructure, forged ahead, and you'll hear much more of her story, and that's Joan Wells. So, real quick, some background on Joan Wells. She grew up in 14 different places before coming to Overland Park right before high school. Her parents kind of had a nomadic lifestyle. She went to Kansas State for her college, spent a very brief period in St. Louis before coming back to Overland Park, starting her first business at the age of 23. So this morning she's going to share with you her entrepreneurial journey and share with you about her company, Algio. She's going to talk about her leadership style and how challenges have shaped and forged her leadership style as she overcame them, and her passion for providing opportunities for others, both inside her organization and in the community at large. My pleasure to introduce Joan Wells.
Thanks everyone for getting a crazy little leadership journey, and I'm just starting a little timer here to make sure that I don't keep you all from what you're doing today. So I am Joan Wells, and I am the president of the Experience Division at Algio. And it was interesting, I first want to say I'm really grateful to the Overland Park Chamber, Tracy Osborne-Boltrin, and her leadership. When she first asked me to do this, I thought, well, that's easy. I come and talk about Algio. I could do that all day long. And then I found out a little later, it's like, no, you're talking about yourself personally. And so I thought, well, that's really hard to do because I've never actually done that before. But then the process of having to sit down and think through your own personal journey, it's kind of cathartic. You think through it and you're like, wow, I had a journey. And you just never, stop long enough, I guess, until someone's writing your eulogy to kind of go through the whole thing and figure out what it was. So it was really great. And the Overland Park Chamber is really special to me, and you'll hear why Overland Park is really special to me in my journey. I'm the incoming chair of the Overland Park Chamber Board of Directors. I'm really excited about that. A lot of really, really exciting things happening at the Chamber and in our city. Also, thank you, Matt, to you and the First National Bank of Omaha for sponsoring things like this. I think it's great. You'll hear a little bit about why I believe connecting in person is really important as well. So I thought I would jump around a little bit time-wise and kind of start with telling you what is Algio and what do I get up and do every day, and then go backwards and tell you about my journey and how I got here. So I can tell you what Algio does, but I thought we just actually put together recently this little video for Ford Motor Company, one of our clients, to kind of just as an update as to what we do. And so I thought, I'd just show you that, and then that's supposedly a lot more entertaining than listening to me talk.
The future has significantly shifted and demands a new approach. At Algio, we thrive on the big questions. What's new? What's next? We are not only ahead of the curve, we are shaping it. Algio excels at pushing innovation, transformative change that starts today and shapes tomorrow. We believe that real innovation is co-designed, a natural blend of digital and live that unites people, process, and product, and is radically personal. At Algio, we are most energized in the space where creative comes to life. Here, big ideas merge with the tiniest details, reflecting the individual, blending nature, curiosity, and brand, asking why, and building better, creating measurable value at every step. Through a partnership with Ford that spans nearly 3 decades, we understand the company is changing how people move, connect, and live. We're ready to reimagine cornerstone experiences of the Ford brand to empower that ongoing evolution. Agio is a global leader in loyalty and engagement. We don't just build activations. Instead, we craft transformational experiences that reach people where they are and show them what's next. Agio is shaping the future of customer engagement, sales, and celebration. That's because we thrive at the intersection of creativity, strategy, technology, and innovation, all fueled by our commitment to excellence. Together, we can transform your future.
So that was a little bit better than me telling you everything. more fun and flashy this early in the morning, but really at the heart of what we do is engagement. Creating loyalty and recognition programs for clients, whether they be via our digital platforms or through strategically designed experiences designed to really create connections between individuals and between individuals and brands. So it's been a really, really great journey. These are some of our amazing clients. And the power of Agio is really, really great. It's been exciting for me. We serve over 65 Fortune 500 companies in 185 countries. And it's having kind of the power of Agio and both from the technology perspective, the creative perspective, and just the incredible humans that they hire has been something that's exciting for me as I start kind of a new chapter of my life, as you will hear. This, in a nutshell, is what we do. I run the experience division of Agio, which is based in downtown Overland Park, and we have about 110 people in our division. We're part of a deeper bench of 400. We sort of sit in the middle, creating what Agio does, creating live, virtual, hybrid experiences, experiential marketing, social media, gifting experiences, and we have areas of our company that are super focused on consumers and customers or dealers and building rewards and recognition programs for them to encourage them to do something. And same thing with employee engagement. I don't have to tell everyone in this room that employee engagement is really at all-time lows right now, and that's just because of all of the change in workforce, and that's something that Agio is solving for. We build employee recognition programs and really custom design solutions for our clients for them to create a more highly engaged and happy and fulfilled workforce. So what we do in the experience design piece, and this is something I've always been really passionate about, is design experiences, and at the same time we're always trying to help our clients build community. For the first time ever, our clients are trying to figure out ways to bring people together to build lasting communities. The idea of just doing an event or something with a minimal shelf life is kind of out the door. So it's really, we specialize in how do you ramp up to that experience, create an amazing experience, and then what is it that's the lasting community building techniques you deploy afterwards. And we do that through our marketing, production, gifting, technology, basically logistics as well. Everything logistically to bring that together for live, virtual, and hybrid experiences. So that's what Agio does. That was the easy part, telling you that, because I say that every day. And then the hard part is kind of talking about my story. Then I did think back about it and decided my story is really kind of a combination of passion and opportunity. Really, bringing together the two. So what I love to do and getting up every day and doing it, and opportunities that were presented to me. When I thought back as well as to opportunity to some people means something that just was handed to you. And so I didn't grow up in a family that had money or had connections or had anything like that. We were actually just talking about how great it is to have connections at our table here. I had absolutely none of that. So I see opportunities as really things that come into your life and you have the opportunity to seize them or not. And when I looked back over my own journey, I realized that when you think of the things that are you're good at, or that's something that might be a little bit about your superpower. So all of you in this room, whether it's that you are resilient or patient or optimistic or determined or whatever that thing is in your life, well, at the end of the day, at least I'm this. You know, everybody has that one thing. If you think about what it is, and then I were to say to you, what is it that shaped that in you? What is it that made you that way? You would say, oh, well, I went through this really hard time. I had a parent who was very ill. I lost someone at an early age. I lost my job and had to reinvent myself, or whatever it is. It was shaped through experiences that you probably did not choose and could not change, but at the end of the day, kind of made you the person that you are. And so for me, and my leadership journey, this was kind of in my formative years. As Matt mentioned, we moved around 14 times before finally landing in Overland Park. And I mean moved like Michigan, Minnesota, small town in Missouri, Atlanta, different places. So everywhere I went, I didn't realize it until later, but I was like my own personal startup. Like I had to start myself every time and reinvent who I was. I had to walk into a room, figure people out, and get to know them, and kind of like reinvent what my journey was going to look like. So hating that whole experience was actually beneficial because it made me a starter, and I became unafraid of starting things. I like that. And then I always had a plan B, because I never quite knew how long something was going to last, or where something was going. That's really been critical and a key part of my journey as well. I am the daughter of a psychologist. My dad passed away last year, and he was an amazing man. He died with 10,000 books in the house. And we had long conversations about figuring people out. You know, every day it's like, well, why would they do that? I wonder what's motivating them. I wonder what drives them. So, and all of those constant experiences, I mean, that's sort of what is my superpower, are those things that were formed in me. So we moved to Overland Park, where I finally had a home base for the first time. I was in the 9th grade. And it felt for the first time that I actually was home. And you'll see later, you know, kind of in my journey, how Overland Park kept reappearing and how important that was to me. As, you know, the biggest thing that I realized is I started to become more introspective when I finally had a home base and went off to college at K-State, go Cats, and, you know, I tried to figure out what is it that makes me tick. And, you know, I see this in everyone, and the amazing people I work with every day, is that we all have weaknesses and we all have strengths. And I remember years ago I read this article about Olympic swimmers, that when they were getting ready to swim, they had, you know, trying to help them overcome their nerves and the fear that they were feeling. Well, biologically, your fear feels the same as excitement and anticipation. So it's really just taking something that was a weakness, the swimmers who were afraid, and helping them channel that as something different and to recognize it as something different. And so through the years, I've kind of realized that, you know, I have some strengths in that I'm an insightful person, and that has been helpful to me. But I do have a lot of weaknesses too, and they're very consistent. I'm a very emotional person. I can be anxious. I can be very impatient, and I can be very restless. And I used to try to figure out, how do I squelch those down and make those go away so I can just focus on the things that I'm strong at. And then, you know, as time has gone on in my career, what I've seen is that those weaknesses have helped me at really difficult times. They've helped me read the room when I'm in a sales presentation to see what people are thinking, or to be aware of, because I'm so anxious about what's next, what's ahead for our business, how do we continue to stay ahead, never being complacent, always trying to see the train coming down the track, and to also be fearless and understand that, you know, I'm tampered with the fact that being fearless is good, but fearless is different than being reckless. So we always want to be a fearless company, fearless in what we do, and being fearless is a really good thing. So, and then also trying to lead with empathy in what happens. And kind of before I sort of tell you my journey, I'll say the thing that centers me or keeps me in one spot that I am constantly telling, especially our newer people to the team, is that, you know, our clients pay us to think at first and then do. Or sometimes they just pay us to think and not even do, but they want us to think. We are such a busy society, and in particular with working virtual and all of that, there's no transitions anymore. People are just go, go, go. And to take time in your day to think and reflect, I try to do that every day. And for me, it's prayer. I journal, I think, I reflect, and all of the ideas, any idea I've ever had in business has come from just thinking and spending time thinking. And if it's a Saturday and I have a cup of coffee and I'm just sitting there thinking, my husband will be mowing the lawn, getting the groceries, and he's like, I just want to get this straight, are you still thinking? And I'm still thinking. Which is why I drink a lot of coffee at like 6 a.m. But that's sort of how I arrive at it. And I don't, the days that I don't do that, I am a terrible person. So it's like, that's my thing. So trying to spend more time on that. But so that's really how I kind of through my entire journey. And you'll see how that has served me well later. The biggest part of my journey, the most important piece, is in oh my gosh, it says 1938. I am not that old.
You look fantastic.
I am not that old. It was 1983 that I attended a K-State toga party, and it changed my life. And I almost didn't go, and the fact that I actually went was really important because I met my husband, my life partner, and you choose a partner in life, and that's the biggest decision you'll ever make. And so choosing wisely is really important, and my 17-year-old self in a rainbow toga chose really wisely, and we built a whole life on that, and being each other's cheerleaders and each other's support, and never questioning, I think, what each other wanted to do, even if it might not have seemed like the smartest thing in the moment. So, as Matt mentioned, I went to K-State, and then went off to work for Procter & Gamble in St. Louis. And I'm going to try to keep my comments. I won't say what I want to say about St. Louis, but we got there and we're like, okay, this is really hard to meet people here. And we wanted to move back to Kansas City. I wanted to be back in Overland Park, which was what I considered our home base. So, and it's interesting because what happened at that moment was super pivotal. My parents said my husband got a job back in Kansas City, and my parents said to me, why don't you just start your own business? So I'm 23 years old. And I'm like, start my own business? And they're like, yeah, just figure something. I'm like, well, doing what? And they're like, well, just figure it out. Like, just read about stuff and figure it out. I'm like, there's no internet, so they're like, figure it out and see what you want to do. And so there was an issue of Working Woman magazine that I opened, and it talked about event planning is the career for the 1990s. And I thought, well, I was in charge of K-State Homecoming. I know how to do events. This is something that I can totally do. So, but then I was a little nervous, so I said, I have this big interview at Hallmark, and so if I get the job at Hallmark, I'm going to do that. And if I don't, then I have a plan B, and I'm going to start this business. But I did not get the job at Hallmark. They did not want me. And so it became a reality. I was like, I'm going to move to Kansas City, and I'm going to make absolutely nothing, which I did. I succeeded in that. And do what I love. But I thought about that because I have 3 kids in their 20s. There is no way I would have said to one of them at 23, why don't you start your own business? 0 chance. And it was interesting because when I did that at the time, there was a lot of people in Kansas City who were really young starting businesses, and they're either still doing it or they've sold it or whatever. And I'm like, it's just not a thing anymore. So I don't know what it is that has changed in our society, that we're a lot more risk averse, and entrepreneurship rates have declined every year for the last 20 plus years. It's just different. It's just a different world. So I wish I could put my finger on it because it's something that I'm sure glad that I did. And so interesting then, of course, one of the things I think that was super critical is in 1989, so I moved back here, started a business at 23, and the one thing that my job at Procter & Gamble taught me is how to sell, and it taught me go big or go home. And that was just always my strategy. It still is my strategy when we pursue ideas, business, people to hire, whatever it is. And I put a little headshot of myself in the College Boulevard News, starting this business, and I got a call from the executive assistant at Yellow Roadway. Then that became YRCD, it might be Yellow Roadway again. But she said, gosh, we have a 2,500 person conference, and we need somebody to do it with all these branch terminal. And I'm like, I can do that. And so, I came out with this big presentation. I spent weeks and weeks, and I got, different people to collaborate, brought in contractors and a few employees, and we're like, we are going to go after this piece of business. And the whole time we were presenting, that passion came through, the passion for the ideas, the passion for what we were going to bring together. And it was a big success. And at the end of it, their chief operating officer, who was the client at the time, said, all right, now I can ask you. I was like, were we your first client? I did not want to ask you in the presentation. You were our first client. So, which is interesting, which really taught me something. It's that if people believe that you can do something and you have the right idea, it's not that you had to have been doing it for 50 years to make you really, really good at it. So those were that, and then kind of after that point, I became a mom, which was a really important part of the journey as well. I have, as I mentioned, I have 3 kids. One of the things that I learned early on is that my kids need to be part of my leadership journey, and they have learned and grown from that, from seeing the highs and hearing the details of the lows. And one time my son was in first grade, and I popped into his classroom at the end of the school day because they were looking for moms to speak about their careers and what they do. So his teacher had reached out to me. So on the front of the whole class, I click on it and I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to you about me coming in to speak about my job and what I do. And my son literally turned at me in front of the whole class and he said, wait, what, you work? And I was like, this is a problem. So I realized, we tried to spend so much time making our kids feel like we don't do anything else, but just you're the center of the universe. And he was the oldest in first grade at that time. And I was like, this is going to change. So I took them along on the leadership journey, the highs and the lows, sharing things. And the interesting thing is my son ended up starting a tennis academy when he was in 8th grade, and he built it to 200 annual clients. He had a payroll of 11 coaches, and he sold the business when he went off to college. So it was really a super cool experience. He got to have the entrepreneurial journey, and then he got all these scholarships before he went off to school because he wrote this essay that was kind of powerful about the lessons he learned from me at the times, like during the recession when I didn't pay myself for 2 years, so I didn't have to lay anyone off, or just things like that he learned that shaped who he is. So I would say that's one of the biggest things I learned is just bring your kids under the tent. And the other thing I did is, choosing a partner. I talked about how important that is. In 1994, I partnered up with a friend from K-State and Procter & Gamble, Jada Hill, who became my partner for the next 28 years. I think 28 years. And that was a real critical pick, because I think a lot of times when you choose a partner, we chose each other, I didn't just choose her, those people, we chose each other. When you do that, you sometimes want someone who's a lot like you, because then it makes you feel better about yourself. For us, we chose somebody just totally different from each other. We were totally different. So where I was more of an emotional person, an idea person, she was much more of a logical person, much more of an operational and process person. And our business would not have thrived had there been 2 of me or had there been 2 of her. And so that's always struck me through life as internally at Algio, we form teams and we form co-leaders, and we try to look for people who complete each other. That's it. We don't try to put a lot of similar people together, but it's just that we are trying to value people's strengths so that people can see each other's blind spots. And so we started this company. We both had just had a baby. We both subsequently would have 2 more very quickly. And so we knew right away, we're like, we want to run this business as if it doesn't depend on us, and we want to run this business from the start that we work mostly on the business, because we can't possibly do all of it, which is different than most entrepreneurs who start doing all of it, then they're afraid to let go of stuff. So that was another, just the timing of it, the philosophy of that. And we used to have a little quote a Ronald Reagan quote, which was, surround yourself with great people, delegate authority, and get out of the way. And I know he got a lot of criticism for saying I'm going to surround myself with people who are smarter than me, because then people were always trying to point out that other people were smarter than him. But I still believe that. I still would rather surround myself with people that I wish I could be, that really impress me and are smarter than me. And the other thing I did is, I can't say I did it, I was part of it. 1995, there's a group of 13 women here in Kansas City, I'm one of them, that we decided, we didn't even know each other, we barely knew who each other were, and we decided we all needed advisory boards for our businesses or for our careers. So some were like, one's a partner at Stinson, some had run businesses, subsequently sold them. And the interesting thing is, we decided we're going to form this group where we confidentially, we could talk about anything in our business. And we're going to be each other's advisory boards. We're going to meet one day a month for first Friday of the month and spend the day together and really go deep on our business in a very safe space. That was instrumental to me. And through the years, we became friends. We traveled together. We, still to this day, there are some of the people I will call if I have something going on and I really need great, unfiltered advice. And so having that group, we called ourselves the Executive Exchange, which is so 1995. It'd be something called way cooler now. But having that group and putting together people like that are, you don't do it like they're your friends, but you do it people who are going to not tell you what you want to hear, if that makes sense. Who are going to tell you what you don't want to hear, I would say. So through those years then, I would say, in the business, we started forming like our philosophies of leadership and things that are super important to me, which again, I mentioned, feeding people's strengths instead of training up their weaknesses, and then designing roles around people's talents. I mean, that's the most important thing, is that it doesn't matter how large you are, you can be a major corporation, but you can always design roles around people's talents versus trying to make them fit into a specific box. Something we said our HR policy really is that we want to help people be the best possible versions of themselves, value the differences in others. Every day we had to choose between being liked and being respected at times, depending on different situations, and it becomes easier the more you do it. And really it was important that everybody understands in the business, understood the profitability of the business, the finances. Everything is just very open book. And we do that for a reason, so people feel an ownership over it. They understand how decisions are made, especially when times get tough. It's like, oh my gosh, if I knew this was our budget, this is where we needed to be, this is like, then all decisions tend to make more sense. And we incentivize everyone based on how the business does, because everyone plays a part in that. And so those are some things that I think are really, really critical. So because of that, some of those things, and also, good people just know good people. We've been very successful in finding people who are really diverse and have different talents, but at that core, they're very unselfish. They're very good people. They're very collaborative. They're very, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind, engaged difference makers. They're right there at this little table here in the middle, so thank you all. But that's been that sort of that common thread that we look at. And when I talk about opportunity, it's, I grew Wellington with my partner, and we grew based on, referrals. And we were never great at outbound sales, and that was not a thing. We were always very reactive to opportunities as they came in, and we believed in treating people well. And that was really critical, because two of our biggest sales, we sold this, in our first year, we sold a 4,500 person citywide convention in Seattle for an international scientific association. And it was because the president's son-in-law interviewed with us. We didn't hire him, but he was so impressed by how we treated him in the interview process and all of that. He said, I know a company you should hire that can do this for you. Mm-hmm. And then we also had a vendor partner that we worked with, same thing. We partnered with them and kind of helped them and in some difficult situations. And they referred us to a Ford Motor Company. And we started working with Ford, and we still work with Ford, whatever it's been like 30 years later. So that's kind of how those opportunities come through. And then thinking through, taking risks and going after things that you're just passionate that you can do well. I think that's a hallmark of what we do. And so I put this event we got in 1997 as, it's probably one of the largest events we've ever done. We competed for the grand opening of the Atlantic City Convention Center against 31 other New York and New Jersey companies. And we just came up with every idea you could think of, from multiple black tie galas to big name entertainment to a big show of everything made in New Jersey, transporting the old Giants football field onto the show floor and having 20 or 100 thousands of companies there that make products in New Jersey, all of these things. And we ended up getting the business, and we had so many ideas we presented. I said, great, this is awesome. Tell us which piece you want. And they said, we want all of it. So it kind of taught me something that is like, why, people do want to hear if you have good ideas. Don't limit them based on what they think their budget might be at the time, or what you think that they might be ready to hear. So through the time that we moved to South Creek, we also founded Wellington Promotions, which is an experiential gifting company. And that business grew really, really quickly over the years. We eventually united under just one brand, Wellington. And 9/11, that was a really pivotal moment for people in our industry, as you can imagine. It was live experiences. I don't know if anyone in the room can remember, but in 9/11, people were afraid to fly. We had 3 different employees on planes headed to events and site inspections with clients. When things started going down, we were actually in the middle of planning an event at Windows on the World at the top of the World Trade Center. Some of our contacts were in the building. It was just a sad time, but it was an interesting patriotic time as well. And for 6 months, clients canceled everything they were doing, and they bumped it out a year. And so we just made the executive decision, this is going to be tough, but we are not charging anybody a penny more. Like, we're going to, and when they bump it out a year, I don't mean like, oh, you just keep doing the same thing. Like, you're finding a whole different place. You are doing that. Now they have another year to think about it, so you're doing a whole different event. And so that was a decision we made that I'm really proud of it. It's like, we talk about reading the room, and that's kind of like more reading the environment, reading the time of what's the right thing to do. And then our go big or go home philosophy saved us in 2002. Another thing I made in business was we had a lot of our eggs in the Ford Motor Company basket. It was like 60% of our business, because it was great. So well, this is easy, but the thing was, we got a letter in the mail. It's like a Dear John letter that said, we are a new department at Ford. We've identified 250 people in the world who do what you do for Ford, and we've narrowed it down to 6. So thanks, it's been nice working with you. We'll see you later. And so we went out, my partner and I, and our team at the time, we then got, all of our advocates from Ford rallied up. Big packet of letters, got on a plane, told them we're coming to meet with you. We met with the head of this department. We had kind of everything together, kind of go big or go home for the big save. And they said, okay, fine, there'll be 7 companies now that can work with Ford. So that is sort of how we saved what we were, that situation. There's times like that where you just have to pull out all the stops and not accept no for an answer. We continue to invest as a tech company, which was great. I never thought I'd be a technology company, and now I work for a technology company where we do so much technology with digital marketing, innovation, event technology. The book, which is before its time, I know it's been redone, The Experience Economy, was something that just super motivated us, and we were really driven by that. The notion of experience design is not, companies are trying to accomplish something. So it's not that it has to be a live event. They could do it through a gifting experience, a digital experience, a virtual experience. Designing the right solution for the client and not making any assumptions. And that was something that really paid off through the years. I forgot to mention, on here, it was supposed to be like that. In 2007 was the biggest thing, which was the recession. And that was challenging because we had a second business mistake. So we used to have all of our eggs in the basket of one company. And then we shifted, and we're like, we are diversifying. And boy, we were really, really, really diversified. But most of the companies we worked with were consumer-based. And so they were very a lot of recession exposure. And they really had to hunker down when the recession happened. And so that was something that, we had to double our marketing budget, get on planes. Hunkering down was not a strategy. And just, recognize that. When we doubled our marketing budget and went and met with all these people, what we found is that people wanted to talk still about their dreams and hopes for the company, their plans, and they didn't care if they were having conversations. We were not talking about anything that they even had the budget to do. But that was our strategy. And because of that, in 2010, like right after the recession, people suddenly had budgets again. We were getting calls from all these people saying, oh, that thing we were talking about, we're ready for that. And so that was really interesting to us. We grew about 500% in the next 4 years. One of the great things we did was the Kaufman Center for Performing Arts. And so all of that is very much high growth phase. We ended up being on the Ingram's fastest growing business list for 7 times, and the 7th time was at the end of 2020, at the end of the pandemic. So that was an exciting time for us. One of the biggest lessons, another lesson I learned was in 2019, I call this our acquisition journey part 1. My partner, Jada, had decided, hey, I think I'm going to be ready to retire. And how do we start growing our business where we had a debt-free business, so that, which is great, but you're constantly selling and then staffing and then selling and then staffing. And so how do we get out of that cycle where we can grow exponentially and create this really amazing future for our team, and then enable her to retire as well? So we went down the acquisition journey, had an investment banker, a great investment banker, and we were connected with a private equity firm that super interested in us. They were going to use our company as a platform, grow it all out to do amazing things for it. And it goes back to that reflection piece where every night I would come home, this whole journey was going over like 6 months, and I would journal about it. It's like, this has got to be good for every single stakeholder. It's got to be good for our clients, for our employees, for me personally, for my family, for our vendor partners. It has to be good for everybody. And the more I did that, we introduced this team to our employees, to some of our clients. And at the end of the day, as I'm reflecting, I'm like, this doesn't feel good. So it's like you walk away from someone at the altar. Well, we left somebody at the altar. And walked away from a great deal. And for 5 months, I thought, this is incredible. I'm the smartest person in the world. I walked away from this, and at the end of February this is the end of 2019. And so the end of February 2020, we were excited. I signed a lease on the 10-year lease at Edison in downtown Overland Park. We're in the Edison building. It's phenomenal, by the way. It's Strang Hall, all of it, downtown, great. But then there was that weekend in March, a few weeks later, where we all left work. It was like March 15th, something like that. And you're like, we'll see you in a couple weeks when this whole pandemic thing blows over. And it did not blow over. And we lost 70% of our business within a couple weeks. And so I call Edison, I'm like, hey, that lease I just signed a couple weeks ago. And they're like, yeah, we'll see you July 1st. And you can move in then. And so as you can imagine, going back to those old lessons of, hunkering down is not a strategy. How do we go to our clients and basically say, look, your objectives business has not stopped. Business did not stop during the pandemic. Live experiences stopped, but our clients still had to accomplish their objectives. And so since we had already been invested some in virtual experiences, we were able to convert most of what we were doing, plus get a whole host of new clients because we were smart and adept at virtual events. And we built on 25 platforms, and we did 250 virtual events that year, and we grew in 2020 over to 2019. It was not a lot, but it was a little, so I'm going to take it. And it was, it was great. And we ended up getting, obviously, into the healthcare industry because we're testing people for COVID. We are verifying vaccinations. We are, doing on-site monitoring of health symptoms. So I became a technology company and a healthcare company over the years. It's really interesting. So then we, that acquisition journey part 2, our investment banker in March of 2020, I went to him and I was saying, hey, this is not, let's just lay this on the aside for now. And he's like, there's people still doing deals. I want to keep introducing you to people. And like, okay. So we kept meeting people, virtually, and most of them were like, you have a great business. When everything gets back to normal, we would love to talk further. We want to make sure we're at top of your list. And then we met Algio, and they were not hunkering down, and they didn't talk like that. And I thought, this is so interesting. They still are out there, making things happen, and just had such a unique synergy with us as we butted right up to what they do, so that 1 + 1 equaled 3, essentially. So that was awesome. We had the opportunity to partner on a gifting experience for 80,000 people, which was really interesting. In the middle of COVID, but it's finding unique solutions to, and we also moved in July, and when Algio flew in to kind of check us out to see what we were like in person, we're all masked and sitting 8 feet away from each other. They looked at our space, and I think they were thinking, oh, this is a cool company, this is really great space. So I think things like that, it ended up all working out in the end and leading into it. But so the Algio story, our acquisition story, is amazing. We grew 250% in 21. We're growing 34% again this year. the culture is really incredible. If you can imagine working as part of a large organization focused on employee engagement, focused on customer loyalty, and building those kinds of solutions. It's like relationships are really important and people matter. And so I love that about what I do. For the first time since I was 23, I have a boss. So I report to someone, which is great. I have a great relationship with him. I report to our CEO. We have difficult conversations with one another, and I love that. It's like I wouldn't have it any other way. It's like I will call him and say, we're about to have a difficult conversation, and he'll say, let's do it. And so it's been great. It's been, we've gone on big hiring sprees. We've hired 72 people in the last 18 months, and 68% of those were referrals from someone who already works in the company. And so that was really a great testament, I think, to Algio's culture. We have a 99.7% client retention rate. Our clients are super important to us. We care about them very much. And so having the power of Algio helped us shift from me being reactive my whole life to being proactive. So we hire ahead of everything. Our hiring is in advance. We innovate and have innovation solutions and technology solutions ahead of when we need them. All of that I can't even tell you. And then business development, shifting to outbound sales and what we're doing now with really externally getting out there versus just relying on referrals. So loving being part of a group that is all about experiential marketing and understands the future. And so it's cool because I found myself kind of back in Overland Park, because being in the Edison district, so there I am looking out my window, and someone would have told my high school self, who waited tables in downtown Overland Park. I went to Shawnee Mission West, I went to Jack's Bar, I did, I think Santa Fe Auto Sound is still there, I got my car stereo there, and so I'm thinking, wow, I am back in this place where I first found myself and finding myself again. And so that's been super special. So things that, and I care a lot about equity of opportunity. My time, everyone's time is super limited, but the things I get involved with, I'm on board of Catholic Charities, it's all about equity of opportunity and getting people solutions to help break the cycle of poverty. And I love that work. I've been on the Catholic Education Foundation board. I chaired that for years. But, finding for kids who don't have the ability to go to our Johnson County schools, they go to schools where 40% of the kids graduate. And just with a little scholarship, they could go to a school where 99% of the kids graduate. And so, trying to find solutions like that because I had opportunity, that's just been, I think, what's most important to me. And also helping mentor entrepreneurs. I'm involved in some different organizations that do that to try to shift the tide on entrepreneurship. So what do we do now in our world? It's the result of the pandemic is that there's fractured relationships. I mean, I spoke on another thing in this room where we were talking about workforce, and it was really interesting because one of the big regional accounting firms was saying, stress and employee engagement, employee burnout is at an all-time high, or burnout and stress is at an all-time high. But if you look at like law firms and accounting firms and people who really track billable hours, the hours being billed out now are the same as 2019. Well, why are people more burned out when they get to work from home and they get to work hybrid? And I totally believe in the future of hybrid work. We recommend you come in the office 3 days, but we're trying to work with people from a lifestyle perspective, and we just haven't figured it out yet. It's like people don't have any boundaries or transitions now. It's like everything just feels like one giant stress. You don't get in your car and drive to work and leave those kids behind, then you leave work and you go home and you're different. And I just read an article that Microsoft Teams, the largest number of Teams messages sent, and I was teasing people last night, the largest number of Teams chats sent is between 6:30 and 8:30 at night. So I mean, where do you, that just feels like, everything just feels like it's a lot of pressure all the time. But it's with all these broken connections, between employees and their workplace and consumers and brands and, all of that, it's like that just makes the work that we do at Algio more urgent. Designing experiences, building community, creating engagement. And it's because people are really fragile right now. So I think that we're going to figure it out. We're an optimistic society, and we're going to figure out this. It's not really a new normal. We're going to reinvent what normal means. The brands that aren't going to make it, the companies that are going to struggle are the ones that are like, we're going back to how it was. Back to 2019. And it's really not going to ever be that way. So we're evolving, I believe, to a much better place, and I'm excited in my journey to do that. And kind of like, you know, really my favorite quote that kind of drives me every day is that, it's a Mother Teresa quote, and it's my favorite. Everybody in this room probably that knows me has already heard it, but it's, you know, not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. Because in the end, we're all just going to do little things our whole lives that are just going to accumulate to be something really special. And so anyway, that's all I have. Just kind of gives you a little feeling from me, but if you have any questions, I'd be... Yes, sir?
So what did you share with your children about your going 14 places before 9th grade? And how did you incorporate that into, your children I know are going to be resilient like you, but how did you incorporate that experience?
So it's interesting with my own kids. So you know how you do the opposite because you're convinced I'm going to give my kids a totally different childhood than what I had. So my kids all grew up in one house. We still live in that house. You know, we've been there, I don't know, 24 years. And there's advantages to that. There's also disadvantages to that, and you know, in terms of raising them. But it is so interesting. It's like I think that they call whatever any kid born after 2000 or after 9/11, they call the bubble wrap generation, or when there was a kid. You know, and it's because it's really hard. You do try to protect your kids from things and try to help them figure things out, which at the end of the day I think is a positive thing, but that's always a real balance, you know. How do you let people fail, but then how do you also help them? Because I think, you know, for my parents, they were super supportive. They were cheerleaders, so they were like, go out there, I'm sure it'll be good, good luck with that, you know, and it was like, that was just very different than, yeah, we did. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what company or organization you're dealing with right now, you're hearing about the attraction, retention, and development of talent is the biggest issue.
Yes, for sure.
It sounds like you're in a great position and you're doing all of those things. What factors would you basically ascribe to what your success is and why you're able to, where everybody else is having challenges attracting, retaining, and developing, you're able to do that at your organization?
Yeah, I think, so two things. It's like the attracting piece of it. I think, you know, we want, you know, getting the word out. It's interesting. It's, the two biggest successful things we've done is like having kind of personal social media campaigns where all of our team members are provided with social media posts and they can put those out there, but then they can put their own personal story out there. Because in the end, people want to hear their friends and contacts, want to hear about their own personal journey and what it means to work, what it means to them to work at Algeo. Like, that's way more important than anything like that our HR could be posting or things like that. So it's way more impactful in terms of attracting talent. I think in terms of keeping and developing talent, so like Kellyanne, who is our senior training manager, is here. She's a new role that we created. It's really important that the talent that is entering the marketplace, they did not, from college, they did not have the ability to do in-person internships. They didn't get to finish college in person and have all of those career training things and all of that. So there's a lot of professional development that several years of the workforce missed. And so the job is our job now to help professionally develop them and teach them those skills. How do you compose a really good business email? Just things like that that are super important. How do you approach your supervisor at work to ask them, you know, questions or for better direction? Those are things that like we're kind of having to go down to the basics that I haven't done in 30 years to kind of help people along with. But I think if you can help people be, you know, like we say, a better version of themselves, they're going to recognize that they've grown in unique ways and they're going to want to stay. Awesome, well, thank you.
And the chair of the chamber in 2023 will be a great entrepreneur. So congratulations and thank you for this great speech today. We appreciate your commitment and dedication to our community. Thank you for chairing or for sharing your story, experiences, and wisdom with us. I want to once again thank our corporate partners, Advent Health, Black and Veatch, Central Bank of the Midwest, Menorah Medical Center, and OP Regional Center, Medical Center, St. Luke's Health System, and T-Mobile, and all of our corporate sponsors for their support of the Chamber. I won't make Tom stand up again. Now, please join me in showing appreciation to Matt Sheets and FNBO for partnering with the Chamber to bring you the executive leadership. With that, I believe we are adjourned. We are adjourned. Thank you.